Here are 50 mark making ideas to try, and a recap of days 1 through 50 of my 100-day project minis. Each mini includes 10 different marks using a variety of tools and techniques, and I hope this gives you some ideas and inspiration. 1. Embroidery thread. You can use an awl or a large needle to punch holes, then sew the embroidery thread through them. I also have a thick foam sheet to put my paper on when punching the holes. This is a fun material to try if you haven't used it before. 2. Watercolor and table salt. Apply watercolor to dry paper. Make sure it's pretty wet, then sprinkle salt on it. I'm using regular table salt. You can experiment with different kinds and also the wetness of the watercolor for different results. I let the watercolor and salt dry completely before rubbing it off. 3. Spray paint. Make sure to do this in a well-ventilated area. I'm putting down some plastic and paper to protect the area. I always do a little test spray to make sure the nozzle's working. Then have fun with it. 4. Use your fingertips. 5. Write on glassine paper. I get this paper from Amazon, and then I'm using a Sharpie to write on it. It's cool because the paper is transparent, so it's fun to layer with and you can see the layers underneath peeking through. I decided to weave it through my thread. 6. Cut out some cardboard and wrap some rubber bands around it to create a stamp. I used a sponge brush to apply a thin layer of paint on it. 7. Pick up an old paintbrush that you've had for forever and use it again. 8. Tie a brush to string and swing it around. I tied mine to my camera holder, and I also made sure the paint was more on the watery side. 9. Use a rubber stamp. You can try carving one or get one from the craft store. 10. Use a palette knife to make a splatter. This can get a little messy, so I like to make little walls to protect my workspace. Each of my minis captures 10 days of my 100-day project, so the first mini is done and features days 1 through 10. Here's mark making idea number 11, weaving. Try cutting slits directly into your paper and then weave something through it. I'm using a watercolor scrap that I thought was pretty. I know it can be scary to cut directly into your project, but sometimes you gotta take some risks. 12. Try using a liquid chalkboard pen on your paper. I like the brand VersaChalk. I'll add a link below so you can check out the things that they have. 13. Use a crayon with your eyes closed. I really like closing my eyes and making marks. I feel like it helps you let go, and it's a fun surprise to see what you made. 14. Stencil using a garden net. So I actually found this net in my backyard, and I wanted to encourage you to look for tools in different places that you might not expect. I use this as a stencil to create a grid pattern. 15. Ink block and ink stick. And I decided to just use an ink stick to apply the paint. 16. A paint scraper from the hardware store. The hardware store is a great place to find art supplies. 17. Use the edge of your palette knife. Dip or brush a thin layer of paint on it, and then you can use it to make really straight lines. 18. Paper collage pieces. Cut out different shapes and play around with them. Use them to create your mark. 19. Dip your straw into a good amount of paint and then blow onto your canvas. 20. Liquid chalk pen and Sharpie. Feel free to combine different tools together to get the mark that you want. I use the Sharpie to touch up the lines. And those are marks 11 through 20, which means my second mini is done. Mark making idea number 21. Take a plastic bag and color it with markers. I'm using Ecoline and Crayola. Brush clean water onto your paper. Then apply the plastic bag to it. Rub to transfer the marker onto it, and then peel off the plastic bag. 22. Mini stamps. This technique was inspired by pointillism. 23. Apply paint to scrap cardstock and then fold it in half. Then unfold it, apply it to your paper, and see what kind of mark it makes. 24. This mark was inspired by assemblage. Add random found things to create a mark. I'm adding some packing paper, tulle, and this wire that I found. I decided to wrap it around my fingers and then adjust it a little bit to create a piece. I glued all the different elements onto my paper with a little bit of Mod Podge. 25. Use a thin strip of cardstock. I decided to have the strip stand up for a 3D effect, so instead of gluing it flat, I glued it on the edges. 26. Print out a photo that you took and use it to create your mark. 27. Use your handwriting. If you don't know what to write, find a quote or a song lyric that you really connect with. 28. Brush splatters. 29. Optical illusion drawing. Draw some op art on a separate piece. This takes the pressure off of making mistakes and then you can add it to your piece. 30. Double strip of paper. Add another strip of paper and play around with the width that you use. And that mark completes my third mini. Here's mark making idea 31, watercolor and tissue. 32. Cut and replace a piece of your project. You can also use things like stickers or washi tape. 33. Add a dry brush stroke. 34. Use a cake icing tool or another kitchen item to apply paint. 35. Cut out a geometric shape to add. 36. Use an inflated glove. I'm applying wet paint to my page and to the glove, and then I'm just going to press, squeeze, and then swipe. You can also gently press down to make an imprint. 37. Roll on the paint. You can try using a glass, a rolling pin, or even a cardboard tube for this. 38. Make a shape with thread. I like making a light pencil outline of the shape I want to make and then punching the holes as I go. I feel like this helps to prevent mistakes, and then you can adjust as you sew. 39. Pull string. Dip some string in paint and then place it onto your paper. Then cover it up with some cardstock or paper and then pull the string. 40. Cut out an outline. Instead of using a solid piece of paper, cut out an outline to make your mark. And this piece completes my fourth mini. And here are 10 more mark making ideas to try. 41. Use bubble wrap. This is a really fun material and there's lots of ways to use this. This time I'm using it to create a background. 42. Make an extra long brush. I did this by taping a bunch of brushes I had together. It was so long I had to do this standing up, but it gave me a new perspective and I liked the loose feel of the brush. 43. Change your perspective. I turned my paper and felt like this looked like a bird, and that really inspired me for the rest of this piece. And I used a photo of clouds that I took as a collage piece. 44. Blow puddles of watercolor. This makes a really cool splatter and creates a different mark than if you dipped the straw into paint. 45. Cut and replace with cellophane. I'm cutting out a piece of my project and replacing it with cellophane. The cool thing about cellophane is that when it catches the light, it will make a reflection of the color. I'll show you what I mean at the end of this video. 46. Make a geometric stamp. I used a rubber block to carve this, but you can also glue things from around the house onto cardboard and use that as a stamp. 47. Cut out a tiny collage piece. Play around with size and proportion, and remember that sometimes something small can make a big impact. 48. Use marbles. Dip some marbles in paint and then put them onto your project. You can roll them around in a shallow container or dish, but I decided to put a plastic cup over it and then move the paper around. 49. Use string to make an imprint. I just glued some string onto cardboard and then pressed it onto my project. 50. Tear up old artwork. And that's a wrap for my 5th mini, and here's how the cellophane looks in the sun. Here's a recap of all the marks I made on the minis. There's day 1 through 10, 11 through 20, 21 through 30, 31 to 40, and 41 to 50. Which mark making method do you want to try, and which mini do you connect with the most? I'd love to hear. Let me know in the comments. I hope you liked this video and found it helpful. and that there are some new ideas, materials, and techniques that you can try the next time that you make some marks. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope we get to create together again soon.